Hello, I'm Scott. Welcome to the 5th video in our barrel modelling series. So far what we've done is we've spawned in a polycylinder, we added edge loops up and down the model, we extruded in the sides of the barrel and top and bottom to get the nice shape around the edge, so to make the geometry a bit more interesting. We've beveled off all the edges around the lips, we smooth shaded the whole barrel, we then spawned in a cylinder for our little nozzle here. We combined that and then remodeled the geometry on the top to make this all one mesh again, and then we've beveled that little nozzle as well. One thing we did forget to do in the last video was we forgot to apply smooth shading again to the object now that we've added the nozzle. So we're just going to go to our mesh display menu at the top here and click soften edges, and there we go, that's now the nozzle all softened out as well. What we're going to be doing in today's video is we're going to UV map this object. So what we need to do before we start that is we need to click this little olive here, this little blue circle with the white circle inside it. It's our hyper shade window, and I'm just going to drag that in. And what we're going to do here is we're going to click this little checker box here in this drop down menu, and it's going to give us this material here that we can apply to the object. So I don't like working with the black and white, it's quite harsh on my eyes, so I change this to an orange and a blue. I find it a bit easier to work with, but you can change it to whatever you like or leave it the black and white if you prefer. Now that we've done that, we're going to go over this checker one node here. We're going to hold right click, and we're going to hover over assign texture material to viewport selection, which is going to add it up here. And if we just move our hypershade, if we click on the mesh that we want to apply this material to, we hold right click on the checker material here and we do assign material to selection and let go. That's now applied our checker to our barrel. So we can close this hypershade now. Now the reason we've done that is that these squares, once we UV unwrap it, we can already see here there's weird stuff happening on the top where the UVs aren't properly working yet, because we need to set that up still. But the checker square will allow us to clearly see if things are stretched along the way or up and down the way, or if they're warped and distorted in different directions. So what we're going to do now is we're going to click Windows up at the top left here. We're going to go to Workspaces, and we're going to go down to UV editing, and we're going to select that. It's going to bring us into this split view here where we still have our model on this side, but we also have our UV map on this side, which right now is a bit of a mess. So what we're going to do here is we're going to UV unwrap as much of the barrel as we can, as simply as we can as well. So to do that, we're going to use a cylindrical unwrap and a tool called Unitize as well, and then we're going to stitch a bunch of bits back together, and we should be able to get this whole thing down to just 2 UV shells. So to start with, we're going to go into edge mode, and this white edge here is our seam, which is running up and down the way. So we actually want to double click that, and we want to hover over this align and snap, and no, cut and sew is what we want. We want to go over cut and sew, drop this menu down, and we want to sew that edge up for now, and then we're going to take our own seam on the other side. So if we double click this edge up opposite from our nozzle at the back of our barrel, and that's going to run all the way around like so, and we just want to hit cut on that. So the reason we've done that is when we texture the barrel, we don't want the seam to be right down the front where the nozzle is, where people are going to notice it. We kind of want to push that out of the way of this little feature here, so it's less noticeable if the texture doesn't perfectly match up and there's a bit of seaming. So now that we've done that, we're going to go into face select, and we're going to take one face, and we're going to double click the face next to it, and we're going to keep doing this right the way down the barrel. As far as the lips. So we're just going to leave the lip on the bottom, and we're going to leave the lip on the top. So we're just going to ignore the bevels on those for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to do in the UV editor here, we're going to do create and we're going to click cylindrical, and that's going to unwrap in a cylinder based on where we placed that seam. So we had our seam down the back, it's moved it round here actually, but that's still okay, it's out of the way enough for us, that's fine. And we're going to just hit W on this, and we're going to move it out of the way on our UV side here, and we're also going to scale it, we're going to make it really big. So when we make it really big like this, it repeats the texture more within it, which is what we want when we go to model some of the smaller, UV map some of the smaller areas of the model, such as these little typefaces in here, because these are going to have really small UV squares, so we want really small UV squares on here as well, so that we can match up the texture density well. So this looks weird just now, but that's fine. We can just shift that right out of the road over here where we don't need it, and we can zoom back in on the rest. And what we're going to do now is we're going to just get rid of the top faces and the bottom faces. We're just going to sort those out now. So we're just going to press Q to get rid of that little move tool. My Maya is going slow, sorry. We're just going to shift click all the faces on top of the barrel here, and we're going to do create, and we're going to click planar. Now there's nothing here, and it's got one big weird orange display on it. That means that the planar map we've done is in the wrong direction. So the way planar works is, if I press Ctrl Z, planar either works by putting a plane in on the y-axis, or on the x, or on the z, and it projects what it sees on that plane. So we're using the wrong plane, so we need to do create again, and in planar we're just going to click this little square to open up the options box, and I'll drag mine in here. So ours is currently using the x-axis, which is projecting forward into the object. So that's why this face is appearing as just flat orange, because when you look straight into it, that face is just a tiny flat line. We want the Y, because we want to project down or up onto this face. So if we click the Y box, and then we hit project, we now see that we get a much better UV map from that. So what we're going to do is, we're just going to hit R, and we're going to scale this up as well, until the squares are roughly the same on here as they are underneath. They don't need to be perfect, because we can sort it out after when we put the lip in. But we'll do that, and we'll just move this up out the way. We're going to do the same now on the bottom. So we'll click off, and we'll just use tab, and we'll paint in these bottom faces by holding tab and drawing a circle. And we'll do create, and we'll do planar again. Now we can move this up with W, and we can just scale the bottom to the same size as the top now, because we know that on the object they're the same size, and that'll give us the same texture density on the top as on the bottom. So if we just do that, we can move this over here. Now before we go further, we just want to check that neither of these has been projected the wrong way. So one of them is facing down, and one of them is facing up. So when we run our planar projection, it's always either going to project it up the way or down the way, which means that one of these is going to be back to front, because it's going to have either caught the underside of these faces or the overside of these faces when it's projected. So the way that we check that is, we use this little green 3 squares here. If we click these, faces that are projected the correct way are in blue, and faces that are projected back to front are in red. So this bottom of the object here has been projected back to front. So there's a way we fix that. What we do is, we hold right click, we hover over UV shell, we select the bit we want, and we go modify and flip, and that's going to just reverse all these faces back to blue where we want them. So we can click off of this little blue square, so we can just click these little 3 white squares now and bring us back to our normal UV view, and we can move on to the nozzle and the lips, which we're going to do in the next video, because there's a few different tools involved in doing that. So I will see you in the next video, where we will UV map out the lips of the barrel using the Unitize tool, and we will do the nozzle as well. So thank you for watching.